the talk about games, played by Ryan and Mike. A modern, a retro video game show. Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff, like Star Trek, It's a Blast, our gaming podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk About Games. I'm Ryan.
And I am Mike. Today, I'm talking about Vampire Survivors. What's your game?
My game is from the Nintendo Direct, Triangle Strategy.
Oh, another one from the Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
So that really made an impact on you.
It did. I think it's, Nintendo's making the recommendation to check out these games. Like, these are the big ones.
Right.
And, there's been a lot of good ones in there. I've seen.
Don't watch the Treehouse or whatever they do. They get
Right.
in a treehouse or something. It's like gummy bears.
I watch. So oh my god. No,
It's like the Keebler elves.
I watch the Nintendo Directs because, like, in this office, it's an event. Everybody gets around and
Right.
talks about them.
Talks
And,
about it. Right.
sometimes there's some mind-blowing stuff, like when they
Right.
announced Breath of the Wild 2. And sometimes it's a real non-event, right? But you
So,
don't know till you watch it.
My take on it is I don't feel like I need to watch it immediately, because if people are still talking about the game 6 months later, 8 months later, like, I'm going to eventually hear about the games. Like, why do I have to know the day of?
Right.
Like,
So you're both lucky and unlucky that you stream, because what happens is the Nintendo Direct happens, and then you get it in the stream, and then if there's literally anything that they care about,
it's all going to be about that. Yeah.
they're gonna let you know. They're gonna be like, "Oh, Mike, what
So
do you think of this?"
I hear about it anyway. I don't need to watch it. They're going to tell me no matter what. I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's probably better for you to figure it out, like, with the fans, like interacting
Right.
with them,
Yeah.
than otherwise.
Because when I actually have sat there and watched it, like, I tune out. I don't care.
Right. Well, I mean, they talk about a lot of anime games and things that
They
you might
just go
not-
through a bunch of games that
Yeah.
all the crap that there might be like one or two things that I care about. Like, I think you were saying there's like a Kirby thing. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to watch an hour-long thing to see, like, 2 weeks later I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh, what was cool in that? And they'll be like, oh, there was a Kirby game, and I'll just watch that trailer. I'm not going to sit and watch the entire thing for an hour.
There's another game that you definitely will see me do on this show, and
What's
that's
that?
they're coming out with a new Advance Wars. They're doing like a remake of it.
I really like Advance Wars.
Yeah.
So, but I've done the original 2.
Right.
And I know that there's more than that, but I know about the old ones.
Right.
Yeah. I really like those. I would just sit there and play on my,
Yeah. I like that.
DS.
It's and my game when I talk about it, couldn't be. It's the same genre, but it couldn't be anything less like Advance Wars.
So I'm going to do my Vampire Survivor game here. So this is a game that it's a new game, and I heard about it because a lot of people are streaming it.
Yeah, I looked at it. This game has 26,000 Steam reviews.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelmingly positive. Like, people really like it.
So I was playing this last night, and I had 5,000 people watching me play Vampire Survivors, to give you an idea
Wow.
of how much people care. Because I usually don't get those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
But to give you an idea of how much people care about Vampire Survivors, like, and then I actually looked during the stream, like earlier on in the stream, I looked and I was like, I want to see other people. Let's look. And I saw there was one guy that's streaming it, and he had like 2,000 people watching, and one person was playing and they had like 8,000 people playing it. And a lot of people in other countries are playing it. It's not just the US. It's a very popular game.
Right.
I didn't know anything of it or what the hell it was, or I didn't know what it was. So I decided to check it out, and I started looking at it, and it is, at first glance, I was like, okay, it looks like a twin stick shooter, which it's not.
Right.
And it looks a little bit like Castlevania, which it's not, but it's definitely a lot of tributes to Castlevania.
That's a weird mix, right?
It's very
'Cause
weird.
Top down. It's not side scrolling.
It's a very weird thing. So
Yeah.
the sprites look like characters in Castlevania. Like it looks like it could almost be like the first guy you get is almost like a Simon Belmont type of character. Then there's like almost like a wizard kind of Sypha thing. And there's one character that's literally just a skeleton, which is
Right.
like the skeleton in Castlevania. It's just, that's what it is. the enemies also are like there's Medusas and mummies and just it's very Castlevania.
Right.
The first weapon you start off with is a whip, and you have a knife. And then you know when you're playing Castlevania and you get the little cross shield looking thing,
Yeah.
and then the screen goes and everything dies.
Right.
That exact sprite is in the game.
Wow.
Like the exact same fucking thing. So it's definitely somehow inspired by in Castlevania, even though it's not a Castlevania game at all. And the gameplay is totally different. So first time I looked at it, and the reason I decided to play it is I was like, oh, it's a twin stick shooter, and you know me, I like twin stick shooters.
Definitely.
Robotron and Enter the Gungeon and stuff like that, and we also just did what's it called, Smash TV on the show.
Yo, funny thing. I'm on this like arcade machine quest right now.
Yeah.
Last night we picked up a Mortal Kombat 2, and when we were in the basement picking it up, I look over and there's a perfect dedicated Smash TV arcade.
Oh yeah.
With the 4 sticks. And I'm like, hey man, like, is there something we can do? Because I figured that you would get a kick out of that.
Did you play it?
No.
So here's my thing about it.
Right.
Be careful because they have one at the barcade, and I thought the same thing. But when you actually play it, it's like those controls. It's not. Like it's a little harder to control, I found, in the arcade, because I was like, oh yo, this has to be the best thing in the arcade, and then I played it in the arcade and I was like, I honestly felt like I'd rather play the Super Nintendo game.
Wow.
Which never happens,
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was because the controllers might have been not perfect, or if that's just how it is.
Did they have open gates, or did they have hexagonal gates, or did they?
I don't remember.
I bet you the gate choice has to be a good one.
Maybe it wasn't right. I don't know. But anyway, if you do end up getting it, just be really careful of that, because it can kind of ruin the experience. Because if you're actually going to play it, you want it to be good. Anyhow, the point was, I thought Vampire Survivors was a twin stick shooter. I start playing the game and I'm like, wait, what? How do you? I'm like doing the twin sticks, and it's like that's not what you do at all. So you're only moving the character around, and the weapons are all pretty much automatic, except for the knife, which is like, the knife is like, if you're walking to the right, the knife will shoot to the right. If you're walking up, the knife will go up. And in a twin stick shooter, you could be moving upwards, but you could be shooting down.
Right.
It's not like that. So just to be clear. So I started playing the game. I'm like, okay, it's not a twin stick shooter. Like, what is this game? So I start playing it, and I find it starts very slow, and you're collecting gems and stuff, and you're killing these enemies. And as you collect these gems, this blue bar goes up, and then a screen pops up if the blue bar fills, and it will come up with different items. Like, it'll be like you can get an axe or holy water or like a laurel, or all these different items that you can get.
It's interesting, the laurels from Castlevania 2.
Castlevania 2, right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the stuff is very Castlevania. Like holy water, axe, all that. So you pick an item, be like, okay, I want to get the axe, or upgrade to the knife, or an upgrade to the whip, or whatever you get, and then you keep playing, get more gems, and you keep upgrading. So I'm like, okay, so this is just a game where you upgrade and you get stronger, and then there's a timer on the screen, and you're trying to make it 30 minutes. So the first time I played, I might have made it 8 minutes, and then I died, and this is where it's kind of like a roguelike, I guess, because then you die, and you start back at the beginning, but there's also, in combination with there being the blue gems, there's also coins.
Yeah.
So when you get coins, when you die and the game's over, you can go into the shop in like the main menu.
Right.
And then you can go into there and you can buy more upgrades and whatever. Then you play again. So what I didn't understand about this game at first was, I just thought, you're walking around, you're killing stuff. I'm like, oh, this is like Castlevania, whatever. It took me a while to understand that this game, it's not really about your skill, because once you're powered up, you can literally just stand there with like, I'll give you an example. One of the things is Bibles, and the Bibles will just spin around you like, as a protective shield.
Right.
And you might have a bunch of other weapons like whatever, all these different weapons, knives and holy water and all this stuff. And the guy's shooting all this stuff at the same time, which is a funny thought, because imagine if the guy was real and he's like throwing all this stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
But like if somebody made it, you know how the people do like the fake, like the movie, like trailers of games and stuff like that, like, you know, like James did that, like Jekyll and Hyde one.
Right.
It'd be a funny thing to make like a movie trailer of this guy like throwing out 8 million things and his arms moving really fast and stuff. But so basically, I thought the game was like this game where it's going to be like this crazy bullet hell twin stick shooter. Right. And I'm like, that's not what this game is at all. And eventually I figured out this game is all about making a really good build.
Yes.
So there's a top row and there's a bottom row. Your top row of things that you can collect is your weapons, and your second row is your passive items. So I have a list in front of me of some of the things because there's a lot of things to remember. But for example, if you get the cross, like in Castlevania, you can just throw the cross, whatever, and you can upgrade the cross. But if you also get a clover and you keep upgrading the clover, then you get another clover and another clover, and you have to get each thing up to a certain amount. Like I think the cross, let's say you get it up to cross level 8.
Right.
At that point, that it's done. It's like at its max, and then you max out the clover. And if you have those two items, it will create a new item called the Heaven Sword. But if you have the cross, and let's say there's one of the other passive items is spinach. So let's say you have the cross and you have spinach. Those two things don't go together, so that would be a shitty build. So if you have the wrong passives with the wrong weapons, by the time you get 10 minutes into the game, you're going to die because your weapon's stuck and you're not powerful enough, and all those monsters are going to consume you, and you're going to die. So you have to become really familiar with the builds and the different things that you can do. And there's different like combinations and like what you can do and what's better than the other stuff. But essentially, like that's what you're doing. And when I first started playing the game, I didn't understand what I was doing at all. But there's a lot of really cool items. Like I said, you can get holy water, and then there's the attract orbs, which make it so that it's kind of like in those Toho games. I don't know if you know anything about Toho. It's like the like sort of bullet hell,
right?
Like Japanese, where you're at the bottom, use a keyboard, and all you're doing is moving left and right, and you don't want to get your hitbox hit.
Right.
It's one of those games.
Yeah.
Anyway, just like that, you can get the attract orb, which you're walking around, and it makes it so if there's a gem like far away, it'll just suck into you instead of you having to like walk all the way over to it.
Right.
But if you know to get the holy water and the attract orb, and you get enough of those, that'll make the labora, which what that is it's water comes like the holy water. It's like you're throwing this holy water, but the holy water is hitting the ground. And it's just like blue holy water. But when it's at its max, it's like white. So it's like better.
Right.
So it's just upgrading weapons and making the best build you can. And it's become a really popular game on Twitch. And I think that's because it looks challenging.
Right.
But it's really like...
So it makes you look like a badass without having to be a badass.
Right. It kind of... Because you got all this shit coming out, and you're like, holy shit, what game's this guy playing with all this stuff coming at him? But then when you actually play it, it's like, oh, okay. And again, it kind of reminds me of some of those Toho games, because I saw some of those online on YouTube years ago, and all the Toho games, it's just a bullet hell, and 80 bazillion bullets are coming at you, and you're like, how can anybody play a game like that? So I started playing those type of games, and some of the cave games and stuff like that. And I started playing these bullet hell games. And what you find out is, yes, they are very hard and they get very hard, but they're not impossible, because what you're really doing in those games is you're just making like micro movements, and then you're looking for a path.
Yes.
You know, so it's got a little bit of that going on.
So once you start looking at the negative space instead of the positive space, you're like, oh, I have to go this way.
And I'll tell you something about, if you guys like shmups and whatever, one thing that made me better at shmups is playing bullet hell stuff. Because I remember being a kid and I'm playing like Gradius and stuff, and like you fight a boss and then a burst of bullets come out, and you're like, and you panic and you don't know what to do. But now, recently I played a game on the show where it was like a platformer, and I'm fighting this boss, and I'm fighting this like snake boss, and a burst of bullets come out. When I was a kid, I wouldn't have known how to handle that burst of bullets, but because I played so many bullet hell games, now I don't panic anymore.
Right. You're like, I gotta figure this out.
I know how to figure it out. I know how to get around the stuff. So it's playing different genres of games helps you get better at other games sometimes. Have you had that
Oh
experience?
yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially that's what the game is. And one thing I do want to definitely say is when I first saw this game, I thought it looked fucking ugly. Like if you really,
Yeah.
if you look at the graphics,
It looks basic. Like the menus are gray and it's like,
it looks like a browser game.
right.
So the first thing I said when I was streaming this is, I know this game, like the pixel art does not, it's not super impressive. It doesn't look like a Neo Geo game.
Right.
Metal Slug, this is not.
Right.
You know? But forget that. Throw that out the window because I've always been a gameplay over graphics guy.
Yes.
I like Atari and, you know, old stuff like that. So if you're looking for a game that's modern, that it's more about gameplay than it is about graphics. And if you like Castlevania and if you like, you know, stuff like figuring out the right build and stuff like that, if you've played games like that, you know, this game, you know, might be for you. I've had a lot of fun with it. I haven't beaten it yet. It was tough for me to make it the 30 minutes. Oh, I got to tell you what happens after the 30 minutes.
What happens?
So I kept playing and I would die at like 20 minutes and then I make it a little further, make 25 minutes, 28 minutes. I kept making it to 29 minutes and I kept dying because at that point there's like so many monsters coming after you. But eventually I got strong enough because I was able to make it because I made a really good build. If you make a really good build, you'll be able to make it. So you make a really good build, 30 minutes come up, you get some treasure and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Grim Reaper comes out and you're like, oh shit, boss fight time. Grim Reaper, you're standing here, Grim Reaper's here. Grim Reaper goes over to you and you just die. So,
Really?
So yeah, apparently. So this is like a newer game. So I think they're gonna add in more shit later. Like maybe you can fight him later. But at the current time that I did this, he's impossible to beat. But some people have beat him because some people have hacked the game. So that and then they upload a video or something of them like beating the Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh shit, he beat the Grim Reaper, but they actually had to hack the game to do it.
Right.
It reminds me of people talk about getting the high score in Donkey Kong, but like Nathan Barnett, like Keith Apicary, I think he hacked Donkey Kong somehow to get the lowest score.
Yeah.
So he had like -0. It's like I like it when people do stuff like that. It's kind of funny to like hack a game, be like, oh look, I beat the Grim Reaper, but
That's funny.
You didn't, not really, because it's not even possible to do that yet. But I think it's a really fun game. It's an example of a modern game that I like, and I'm really happy because it's something that I think is fun, that's new, that a lot of people on Twitch are playing, and I actually like it because I've been looking for a game like that for a while.
Right.
That like a lot of the games that are like get popular on Twitch are just not. A lot of times they're not for me too much. So I'm just really happy that I found a game that like other people care about and that I like genuinely enjoy and stuff. And another thing about this game is it's $3.
Wow.
This is a game that I think could sell for more money than they sell it for.
They shouldn't have sold it for $3, but maybe that's what made it popular. I don't know.
Well, what I think is that I think it's a really good idea for them to sell it cheap because what they could do, and especially since the graphics are kind of they could get people hooked on this type of game. And then in a year from now, they do Vampire Survivors 2. They make the graphics awesome, and then they charge $10.
Right.
And then they can make a fucking fortune.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
So, what game do you have today?
So I played Triangle Strategy. Mm-hmm. You may remember a few years ago, Square Enix, again, in Nintendo Direct, announced Octopath Traveler.
Which I played some of, and I kind of liked it, actually.
And the thing that made Octopath Traveler cool was it had this 3D pixel aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And now, Square Enix knows they have a good thing because they've been really advertising that. In the very same Nintendo Direct to this, they announced that Live Alive, which was a Japan-only Squaresoft RPG about all of these different characters following paths through time.
Okay.
Very similar to Octopath Traveler.
Wait, I'm sorry. It's not the same
No.
characters from Octopath Traveler.
No.
It's totally different characters.
Yes.
Okay.
But
I didn't know if it's like
you
spiritual
play-
successor or anything.
No.
Okay.
Well, kind of, but it's like a different universe. Everything's
okay.
different. So Live Alive, which they're doing in that pixel 3D style, is to Octopath Traveler what Triangle Strategy is to games like Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
So Octopath Traveler, traditional RPG with active time battles. Live Alive is traditional RPG.
When's the Live Alive coming out?
Soon.
Okay.
A few months. Summer.
Okay, a few months. Okay.
With active time battles. Triangle Strategy is a strategy RPG where you're still leveling up characters and using spells and getting items and
just to be clear, I'm pretty sure that Ryan just played the demo because the
like
game's
a
not
demo
out.
of Triangle Strategy. It'll be out in a little bit.
So how long is the demo?
So the demo is several hours of gameplay.
Okay.
So you get a really good idea. The save files of the demo are compatible with the save files of the real game.
Uh-huh.
So when the real game comes out, I'll be able to continue my save.
Oh, you don't have to replay it.
Yeah, which is really good.
That's great.
But this game kind of has a setup. It has that pixel 3D style. It looks like Octopath Traveler, but it's a strategy game where it's grid-based fighting, turn-based on a grid. We talked about at the beginning of this video, Advance Wars. Mm-hmm. It's very much in the same vein of that.
Anything like Into the Breach?
Into the Breach, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
A Disgaea, mm-hmm. Final Fantasy Tactics, Shining Force. The people who made this game definitely
they're fans of Shining Force.
Played Shining Force because...
And the first Shining Force of Sega Genesis, right? Or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the girl character is a pyromancer that shoots fire, much like the girl wizard in Shining Force. There is a guy on a horse who is exactly like the centaurs in Shining Force.
So I only really know about the Genesis one. Isn't there a bunch of sequels though?
So there's Shining Force and Shining Force 2, which are on Genesis.
So both are on Genesis. Okay.
And then Shining Force 3 is on Saturn.
Sega Saturn. Okay.
And then there is a remake of Shining Force 1, I guess. It might be a little different. There's a Sega CD one as well.
Okay, I didn't know about that one. Okay.
Yeah, I have that if you want to see that.
If I got into Shining Force, I'd probably just start with the Sega.
Shining Force is cool. Definitely, there are like birdmen that can fly. So they have like long-range air units.
Mm-hmm. Try to make a Michael Keaton joke.
I mean, if you want to.
I don't want to.
Okay. So there's birdmen. In Triangle Strategy, there is people who ride griffins, so they fly. It's very similar. A lot of things. This game has a class-based system. It has jobs that upgrade, just like Shining Force, just like Final Fantasy Tactics, but it doesn't have the Final Fantasy job system.
Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy 3, all that. Yeah.
And the Final Fantasy job system is what makes Final Fantasy Tactics so cool. And having that missing is a big problem.
Okay.
With Triangle Strategy, because like the characters have cool abilities and they give you, it feels way more like Shining Force because they give you a ton of characters. Mm-hmm. Like you're on the second battle, you got like 8 people in your party.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
How many are in Final Fantasy Tactics?
Final Fantasy Tactics, it's usually only like 5 or 6.
Okay.
And you might be able to have like 30 like on your team.
Because I remember when we played that Transformers game.
Yeah.
It was like 3. You're just like, it was like Optimus and like 2 others, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more.
Yeah, I like that Transformers game.
I liked it too.
Yeah. Triangle Strategy, the biggest downfall of it, all the stuff I just told you about sounds cool.
Yeah.
Right? You have like a little tent where, there's the blacksmith to upgrade your weapons. There's the item shop guy. There's the class guy. There's the bartender. You go to the bartender to mentally fight battles. So that's how you level up between story missions.
Okay.
You go to the bartender and he gives you scenarios.
Oh, I see.
And your characters can fight in those scenarios to level up.
Okay.
Right? And I'm sure because you use your save file, a lot of people are going to use that system to level up all their characters waiting for the game to come out.
Yes.
the full game, because you could be doing that right now. You could be grinding away, right?
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Right?
Yeah.
So and you know that's like a classic pastime. I remember back in the game FAQs days, people would go on Final Fantasy Tactics and try to find ways to like break the system and level up and do things and get the right job points and skills
Yeah.
way in advance of
Game FAQs?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to go onto game FAQs and update the maps for Temple of Doom and actually put the locations of all the keys and the idols, because nobody's done that.
And here's the thing: I know people in the chat are going to be like, "It's game facts." So if you'd like to leave a comment on the video, let me know if you'd rather call it game facts or game FAQs.
How about either? It's whatever. Roll my die.
Right. But I want to hear what people
say potato, I say potato.
Right. So do that. Comment on that.
Yeah.
This game.
How would they even write it in a comment?
Because you could write like phonetically.
Okay, they write it phonetically.
Like FACK game fucks, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. There's back attacks. There's assist attacks. There's like the battle system's pretty cool. Where this game falls short, and it's really unfortunate, is this game falls short in the story department. And there might be a good story, but there's just so much needless dialogue.
Is the story maybe okay, but it goes on for too long?
It goes on for so long. And the people who made this game know it, because they put a fast forward feature and a skip feature in that's at the bottom, very prominent. So it's like, here's the problem, right? The problem with this game is actually 2 games or 3 games. This game is the tactical puzzle, how do I move my pieces like chess game. And this game is the medieval court simulator, where there's a morality system, and the morality system divides you between utility, morality, and liberty.
And you have to like both types of things to be a fan of this game. So it's for a very specific type of person.
Right, because if I wanted to play like a visual novel where I'm like in the court of this kingdom and I'm like...
See, for me, I'm interested in the turn-based strategy part of this.
Right.
But I don't want to wait through all the dialogue.
Yeah, if you were playing this game... Because you played Advance Wars. Advance Wars is
I love Advance Wars.
Oh, you're fighting a guy. Oh, he's bad. Fight.
There is a little bit of a talking in Advance Wars, but it's not much. It's enough that I can tolerate it, so it's not much at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's a game that's made by Chucklefish called Wargroove.
I played it.
Yeah.
I actually did a stream of it, and I like that game a lot.
And Wargroove doesn't overwhelm you with the story.
We did an old, I think, Talk About Games episode on it, and that was one that afterwards I was like, I'm going to stream it, and I did do a stream of it, and that was a great game.
Yeah.
I didn't like get that far in it, but I liked it.
But like we have these great like indie RPGs, Into the Groove, Into the Breach.
Into the Groove is like the Toe
In
Jam
the Groove
thing.
In the Groove is a dancing game.
Oh, yeah.
Into the Breach, Wargroove.
Oh, Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove. Sorry.
Yeah, so many, right? Really good games. Then this game uses all its production value for evil. Right? Because this game, the core concept, like this, you could play this on a Genesis. If you strip away...
why does it need all the bells and whistles?
If you strip away all the graphics and all the voice acting and all the stuff, like look at Wargroove. Wargroove looks charming. The characters are expressive. It's great. And I love that they have the engine to do the pixel 3D. But like the story is stupid because it's the 3 kingdoms are the 3 kingdoms from Mad Max Fury Road. They trade in trade, iron, and salt. Well, in Mad Max Fury Road, they trade in water, gasoline, and bullets.
You know, since this game isn't out yet, I mean, it's going to come out soon, so it doesn't matter. But, like, this is fixable. And I'll tell you how I think it's fixable without too much work. Have modes when you start the game. So you're on the menu screen of this game, and mode 1 is the game is exactly how it already is. Mode 2 is you can just do the the tactical, parts. And mode 3 is like maybe it's more all just story if you want just the story. So you give everybody options to do what they want.
Because like the difficulty of this game right now, and I was playing it on normal, but there's like 3 difficulties below normal in this game.
Oh, to make it easier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I played it, it's like hard, normal, and then there's like 3 other ones. Mm-hmm. I think that the average person who just wants to do the story is going to get their ass beat on normal.
So you think they're going to drop it down just because they want to get through it?
They're going to have to.
Yeah.
Because like I'm like using items, I'm doing different things.
Easy, yeah.
It's not easy. And like I could probably go into the tavern and level up a little bit and things like that, but you really have to use your abilities and be smart. I'm also critical, like there's some characters that I probably wouldn't want in my party. Like there's a dude who just does like buffs, but he's not a healer.
Okay.
And his attack sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, the buffs just don't do enough. Mm-hmm. It's like I'd rather have another sword guy for him.
And this is when you're finally getting to even play the actual...
There's so much. Okay, so the reason why is because of the morality system in the game.
Okay.
What characters you can recruit is defined by how you answer.
Okay.
Right? Do you answer things that are more about utility? Do you answer things that are more about morality? Or do you answer things that are more about liberty? Right?
You're going to have a lot of patience to
but here's the thing.
Listen to all that. And...
Don't you want to be told, if you do this, you can get this guy?
Right.
Like there's this ambiguous system.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, if I want the cool guy with the sword, I need to make sure that I answer the questions this way. Now I got to go to my game FAQ and find how I answer.
And you might not know which one it is. You're like reading this dialogue, and if you pick the wrong thing, you're gonna lose the fight. And then what? And then if you lose the fight, then you're gonna have to like start the game over, or like
right.
What?
It's like, oh, I didn't get the guy, so
or revert to your last save file or something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got this character I don't want to play, or I got the bad ending.
It's been a while since I played it, but like with Into the Breach, isn't it just basically like game?
Yes.
I would rather do that.
Yeah.
Because that's the part of it I want.
Right.
Like I want it to be like Into the Breach.
Yeah.
And this game has the turn-based strategy, which is cool, but like so much bullshit in between.
I think that Final Fantasy Tactics and Shining Force even strike the perfect balance between story. Because you want a little story. You want to have a little RPG. You want to know who the characters are. Maybe. Not always.
I'm more of a just I want to play.
Into the Breach was like, aliens, bad.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like Advance Wars, because there's characters that come up on the screen in Advance Wars and they talk to you a little bit, but it's mostly just tutorial shit.
Yeah.
And they like, you have to do this and you have to do this, and then you fucking play the game.
Right.
And then you sit there and I love Advance Wars.
Yeah. So I hate to say, I was talking a lot of shit to Mike before we played the game, but I'm probably going to buy this and I'm probably just going to hold down the skip button. Because I love strategy games. This is like one of my favorite type of games. And this is like the big new one, and it's got the.
So you feel like you have to play it.
Yeah, I feel like
but when you actually play it, you're not gonna watch. You're gonna skip all the shit, and then you're gonna watch. So I think you're gonna watch some of it, and some of it you're gonna skip.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because there's just so and listen, there is so much. There's a painful amount of dialogue, meaningless dialogue. But being able to...
Because Ryan brings up Final Fantasy Tactics quite a bit.
I do. I think it's one of the best games.
And so I believe you when you say, that when this game comes out, you're going to want to play through it because you want more of that type of thing.
Exactly.
What about like Final Fantasy Tactics itself? Was there like sequels?
Yeah, so there's Tactics Advanced, and then there's Tactics A2 on DS.
Now, have you played all those?
Yes, I have. And the 2 Tactics games after Tactics are very flawed because they went like it's like all fairy. There's like all like different like fairy creatures that you're with.
Fairies? Yeah.
Fairies. Not fairies like with wings. Fairies like animals.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Final Fantasy Tactics had this more like grounded.
And that's a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had this like grounded like medieval story.
Mm-hmm.
It was like swords and sorcery and stuff. Also, the one Final Fantasy Tactics game brings the idea that there's like referees and there's like rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't stand on water spaces, or you can't, if you use fire attacks, you get in trouble.
So I got a question for you then.
And
so
I don't like that.
Since you're like a real Final Fantasy Tactics guy,
Yeah.
and you're also an Into the Breach guy, if I'm gonna put those against each other,
Yeah.
which would you rather play? Into the Breach or Final Fantasy Tactics, the PlayStation game?
I would rather play Final Fantasy Tactics.
Now, what does Final Fantasy Tactics give you more?
It's an RPG. Like the characters get like armor and weapons, and
You feel more
there's, like-
invested because you feel like you know the characters?
yeah. Well, I mean, and there's like a build system,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the Final Fantasy build system is just so good.
Mm-hmm.
And the like open world of Final Fantasy Tactics, like there's so many secrets in that game where you can find special characters and find items and do things like it's almost like an open world game in that
Right.
it's like, oh, I'll go back to this woods when I reach a certain level, and now there's the red chocobos there, and I can tame them, and then I have those guys, and it's like really complicated.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I want to have my thieves because when I fight Gafgarian, he has this sword that I could steal. It's
So let me ask you. I want to ask you a question about Final Fantasy Tactics. Then, so let's say that they were going to do a new Final Fantasy Tactics. When I go back to the DuckTales remastered thing. That bothered me because it's like the same game as the NES game, and I want like new levels and stuff. If they made a new Final Fantasy Tactics, I'm guessing you wouldn't want the same
if they made a new Final
gameplay, like the same. I don't know what to call them, like the fights. You wouldn't want the same fights, right?
Squaresoft is incapable of making a new Final Fantasy Tactics because they would base it in the world of the handheld games, and it would not be that high fantasy swords and sorcery.
Oh, that sucks. Wait, why?
Because those characters are the baseline of the characters for the MMO.
Well, forget about that. Just make like the good stuff.
They won't, because that's not what their audience wants. Their audience wants the fairies, and they want the kids, and they want the magical girls, and they want all that stuff. So you can't have that in Final Fantasy Tactics.
Cecil, Kane,
Yeah. Dude,
Rydia.
if you listen to me.
Here's the game: Final Fantasy 2 and 3, like the Super Nintendo ones, as Final Fantasy Tactics games.
Dude, it would be insane.
That's what they should make.
That would be amazing and insane, and they would never do it. You know why? Because we're old. And that's not in the words of Wayne Gretzky. You don't go where the puck is now, you go where the puck is going.
You know how that could happen though?
How?
In these great fan games that people make.
Absolutely. Somebody could make it tomorrow.
There's an idea for you guys, the community of, because I know sometimes, I'll end up with the people that actually make games in my streams and stuff. So hopefully the right person will hear that.
Yeah, man, if you made a tactics game that was similar to Final Fantasy Tactics with like cool characters like dragoons and freaking like cool spellcasters and stuff.
That's what you really want, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we talked about this before. It's like, do you want another franchise? Do you want another Marvel movie? Do you want another Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever? It's like, no, I want the next big thing. So make the next big fantasy tactics game and wow me.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Like, so while that would be a cool idea to have like the old like Super Nintendo era as a tactics game, that would be really cool. But what would be better is just something completely new.
Right.
And brand new characters.
Right, because those characters blew us away.
Right.
Like you're talking about.
But I'm saying this, but that's new characters, isn't it?
But they're like all like kind of gray and samey. Like you can't really tell them apart.
You want like characters.
Like new, where they're cool. Like they have like pink haired girl, but like the dude you are with the sword is like brown. Like we're in like a pixel game where it's like all the colors of the rainbow.
Everything seemed very gray and brown.
It's gray,
It's one of those.
brown, and it's like, come on, man. Like we literally do better.
There's a lot of games that have that problem where it's got that sort of gray brown look, and it seems like a lot of people want to do that, and it's like, make your game pop. You know?
Definitely. I mean, this game has the potential. The other thing is like the music in Final Fantasy Tactics, like the music direction, very like driving and very like martial.
It was also like
stuff.
Cinematic with the way the tactics, the camera.
Yeah, the
angles
cameras are
and all that.
moving and stuff. And in this, like, it's just like lack of care.
I feel like we were lucky to grow up in that era.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yeah, definitely like this game, they're churning them out. You know, we gotta chill out with it.
So when you finally get to the battles though in this game, is it any good?
Yeah, and it's hard.
It's hard.
It's good and hard, which is nice. And the exploration and the party stuff and the voting and the morality, like at least they're doing something, but man, the dialogue is just dry. Like forget about the story. Like the story's kind of interesting. Like the story's like the plot.
The overarching plot's okay.
It's like, okay, cool. That's
but the
fine.
lines of dialogue are
the
dry.
dialogue, it's like, shut the fuck up. Oh. You hear that silence?
And that's when you're holding down the button to skip.
And I'm just holding down the button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't care.
Is that when you go into your basement and you find the Final Fantasy Tactics disc?
Right? I'm holding down the button
you
with
put
a
it in.
wireless controller. I'm in the other room looking for Final Fantasy
You're looking
Tactics.
through the bin.
Right? I'm like,
You're like, oh fuck, I have it. Yeah, you're
right, throw
yeah.
the controller, right?
So it seems like your review of this game of what is it called? Tactical strategy?
Triangle strategy.
Triangle strategy.
Yeah.
Seems like your review is go play Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, go play Final Fantasy Tactics. And if you like that a lot, and you're done with that one,
Yeah.
Get Triangle Strategy.
Like you got to play that first.
Yeah, but you are 12 deadly fiends and an airship graveyard away from this one. Let me tell you.
Well, I guess that's you got anything else for
No,
it?
that's what I got.
I guess that's the show for this week. Vampire Survivors, definitely check it out. It's a cheap game. I think it's something, people would enjoy. One thing that I didn't say about it that I did want to throw out was that this is a game that, like, once you do all the builds and you level up all the characters and then you do the levels, like, you run out of content.
Yeah, it's a game you solve.
There's like an ending to this, so it won't be a game that I'll be able to play for like 20,000 hours, like Binding of Isaac or something.
Right.
Like that's not like that. But they might add more content to it, so I'm excited to see what they would do for it. And it's a game that needs more. They need to add some more stuff to it, so hopefully they'll do that. But a lot of people are playing it, so they probably will. So that's my recommendation: Vampire Survivors.
Cool.
And I guess Final Fantasy Tactics.
And if you watch this long, make sure to check out our podcasts wherever you download podcasts: Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts.
We also have a Patreon, and our Patreon, we do a lot of extra content on there. Every week, there's a new video. We talk about a variety of different things: video games, movies, Star Trek, whatever, all kinds of stuff.
It's a little spicier, so get ready for some spice.
Sure, it is. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
I have so many things I want to talk about. I'm like going to get off track here.
This is the case of a game that was far more popular in Japan than it was in the United States.
They never went to Mordor. What are you talking about?
This is kind of weird.
But there's real detail. There's like wiring underneath.
They're one and done. That's
Yeah,
it. Sold
yeah.
out. So they're super hard to come by.
You heard him, guys. Bring it back. Here we go again. Round two.